She caught her husband cheating through the baby monitor with the nanny's husband.
From rock bottom. This is a true story. The names and some events have been changed to protect the identity of those involved. You are listening to From Rock Bottom. Subscribe to the channel and keep respect in the comments. Do you have an inspiring story of overcoming challenges? Send it to us by email.
I thought the baby monitor was just for safety, until one night I saw movement. It wasn't the baby. It wasn't the nanny. It was my husband, with the nanny's husband, in my baby's room. I froze. My whole world stopped. I had no idea this night would destroy my marriage, my trust, and everything I believed about the life I built. But that was just the beginning, because what came next was even worse. Stay until the end, because you won't believe what I did after I pressed rewind. I used to think I had the perfect life, or at least a peaceful one. We had just welcomed our first baby a few months before. A sweet little girl with wide eyes and a laugh that could soften any hard day. My husband Daniel was supportive, attentive, and affectionate. We'd been together for almost 7 years, married for 3. From the outside, we were the kind of couple people pointed to and said, they figured it out. We had the house, the kid, the dog, the soft-colored nursery with hand-painted stars on the wall. I was tired. Of course, new motherhood is no joke, but I felt content. I really thought we were building something solid. Daniel worked in IT and often pulled late nights in his home office, buried in code. I never questioned it. In fact, I was grateful. He worked hard so I could stay home with our daughter during those early months. He was always saying things like, "I'm doing this for us." And I believed him. Every word. Because why wouldn't I? We also had a nanny, Laura. Young, kind, full of energy. She had a son of her own and lived close by. Her husband, Marcus, sometimes came to pick her up when her car was in the shop. I barely noticed him. To be honest, everything felt like it was on autopilot. The days blended together: feedings, naps, laundry, the occasional walk outside just to remember I was still a person. Daniel and I were distant, yes, but I chalked that up to the baby. The exhaustion, the shift in dynamics. That's normal, right? Still, I started to feel like I was losing something. Not just myself, but us. Late-night talks turned into silence. Quick kisses on the forehead replaced real intimacy. He wasn't cold, just absent. But he always showed up for our daughter, changed diapers, rocked her to sleep, stayed up monitoring the baby cam when I crashed early. It was sweet, loving even. At least that's what I thought at the time. Then came the night that shattered everything. It was a Thursday. The baby had been fussy, and I finally got her to sleep after what felt like hours of bouncing, humming, praying. I left the monitor on the nightstand and crawled into bed while Daniel said he'd stay up to finish something for work. I nodded, half asleep already, grateful that someone else would keep an ear out. At around 2 a.m., I stirred, not from the baby crying, but from a strange noise, a click, then a muffled thud. I blinked. The room was dark, silent. Out of habit, I turned my head to check the baby monitor. And that's when I saw it. Not the baby, not the crib, not the soft, slow rise and fall of daughter's chest. But movement. 2 shadows. 2 grown figures. The monitor was angled toward the crib, but there was enough light to make out what was happening. At first, I was confused, frozen. Daniel? And Marcus? The nanny's husband? I stared at the tiny screen, my brain refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. They were close, too close. Whispers, hands, a kiss, in my baby's room. I don't even remember how I moved. I sat up, grabbed the monitor, rewound it, rewatched it. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a dream. It was real. I felt my entire body go cold. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I clutched the monitor like it was a bomb, ticking in my hands. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was maternal. That was my child's room. That was her sanctuary, our safe place. I wanted to scream, but the baby was sleeping. So instead, I sat there, silent, numb. And all I could think was, why? I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, that image, that moment played over and over again in my mind. Daniel, Marcus, in our child's room, touching, whispering, kissing. My heart wasn't just broken, it was shattered into 1,000 sharp, unrecognizable pieces. By sunrise, I still hadn't moved from the bed. The baby stirred in her crib around 6:30, and I forced myself to get up, get her bottle, hold her close, pretending for her sake that the world hadn't just cracked wide open under my feet. And Daniel, he came into the room an hour later, calm, casual, smiling like nothing had happened. He leaned over to kiss the top of my head. I flinched. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice soft, still pretending. I stared at him. Really stared. How long had he been lying to me? How many nights had he sat at that desk pretending to work late while orchestrating that behind my back? How many times had he looked into my eyes, kissed me while carrying this secret? I couldn't play along anymore. "We need to talk," I said, my voice quiet. Too quiet. He looked confused, maybe nervous. He nodded slowly, following me into the living room. And that's where I showed him. I placed the baby monitor in front of him, pressed play. His face drained of color. He didn't speak at first, didn't blink, just froze. Then he whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that. You weren't supposed to see that. Not, 'I'm sorry,' not, 'let me explain.' Just a confession that what he feared was being caught. I couldn't hold it in anymore. 'How long, Daniel?' I demanded. 'How long has this been going on? In our house? In her room?' He sat down, covered his face with both hands, and let out a long, trembling breath. 'It wasn't supposed to happen,' he finally said. 'It just did.' Tears burned in my eyes. 'No, you made it happen. Don't talk to me like you tripped and fell into bed with him.' And then it all came pouring out. He and Marcus had met months ago casually through Laura. They started talking, hanging out, texting, and somewhere along the line things blurred. He didn't say he was gay. He didn't say he was bi. He just said, it was different. It was him. And I believed him. Not because I forgave him not even close, but because there was a sadness in his voice that felt too heavy to fake. I sat there, still holding our baby in my arms, and I realized something horrible. I didn't even know who I had married. I had built a life, a home, a family with a man who was capable of this, of lying, of sneaking around, of bringing someone else into the sacred space where our daughter slept. And not just anyone, the husband of the woman I trusted to care for our child. The layers of betrayal were endless. He kept trying to explain, to say that he didn't plan it, that it wasn't about me, that he still loved me in his own way. But it was like listening to someone talk from behind a wall of glass, muffled, distant, unreachable. Because the truth is, once you've shattered someone's reality, your words don't land the same way anymore. He begged me not to tell Laura. He said it would ruin their marriage. I almost laughed. Their marriage? He was worried about their marriage. I looked at him and said the most honest thing I could say in that moment. "You already ruined everything. I'm just the one who found out." I wish I could say I took a few days to process, that I calmly weighed my options, that I breathed. But the truth is, I snapped. After Daniel begged me not to tell Laura, as if her life, her marriage, his affair were somehow still in a delicate little bubble he could preserve, something in me cracked. I asked him one simple question. "Do you think she deserves to live in a lie too?" He went silent because he knew. He knew that Laura, this woman who had held our baby, laughed at our kitchen table, texted me pictures of bedtime, she deserved the truth. So, I told her. It was the most surreal conversation of my life. I texted Laura first. Hey, can we talk? It's about something important, and it's about Marcus. She replied instantly. Of course. What's going on? I didn't want to say it over text, but my hands were shaking and my heart was racing. So I typed, I found out something I think you deserve to know. Marcus and Daniel. The typing bubbles disappeared, then reappeared, then disappeared again. Finally, she wrote. What do you mean? I sent her the video. No explanation, no caption, just the truth. The silence that followed was deafening. 10 minutes, 20, an hour. Then she called. Her voice was small, barely above a whisper. I saw it, she said. I watched the whole thing. And then she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just a soft, slow crumble. The kind of heartbreak that comes when your entire world unravels quietly in your hands. I thought we were fine, she said. I thought he was just tired, that it was work stress. I never suspected, I interrupted gently. Me neither. Because that was the cruel symmetry of it all. Both of us, in different rooms of the same nightmare, loving men who had taken our trust and smashed it for their own selfish thrills. The next few days were a blur. Laura moved out, took the kids, stayed with her sister. I stopped letting Daniel sleep at the house. We agreed to keep things civil for the baby, but the energy in the air was toxic. He never tried to deny it again, but he didn't exactly apologize either. It was all framed in confusion. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even know what I was feeling. And that was the hardest part, because his betrayal wasn't some one-night stand. It wasn't a mistake made in a moment of weakness. It was a choice he made over and over again. He let someone into our child's room. There are no excuses for that. People started to notice the change in me. I stopped wearing my ring. I lost weight. I spoke less, smiled less. At daycare pickup, the moms whispered. At work, I kept my head down. Even my parents didn't know the full story. How could I explain that the man I married had cheated with another man in our home, with the nanny's husband? It sounded like a soap opera, like I was lying, like I had made the whole thing up. But it was real, every horrible moment of it. I thought about keeping it quiet, thought maybe I could just move on silently. But Laura, she refused to stay silent. She posted the truth. She didn't name names, but she wrote a long, raw post on Facebook about betrayal, about double lives, about how women are conditioned to forgive, to minimize, to protect everyone but themselves. The post went viral in our small community. Everyone was guessing, whispering, piecing things together. And soon, the truth was out. Daniel lost his job. Marcus, too. No one said it publicly, but people knew, and people talk. He came to me one evening, desperate. You told her to post that, he said. I looked at him, exhausted. No, she told the truth. Something you never had the courage to do. He stood there, face pale, angry and ashamed and helpless all at once. You've ruined my life, he whispered. I laughed. You ruined your life, Daniel. I just stopped covering for it. I wish I could say that was the end of it. That after the dust settled, I felt lighter. That closure arrived like a gift wrapped in wisdom. But healing isn't linear. There were days I missed him, the version of him I once believed in, the mornings we drank coffee together, the nights we watched our daughter sleep. Grief doesn't ask for logic, it just arrives. But there was something else too. Power. A quiet, growing power in me. Because now I knew. I had seen the truth, survived it, named it. And every day I was building something stronger from the ruins. You don't walk out of something like that and immediately know who you are. There isn't a light switch where betrayal turns into wisdom overnight. No. It's slower than that. Messier than that. Lonelier than that. but it does happen. At first, I existed in pieces. I was a mom trying to stay strong. I was a woman trying to understand what the hell had happened. And I was a ghost of myself, someone I barely recognized. Daniel moved out. We didn't fight much, not because things were okay, but because there was nothing left to say. The silence between us was no longer suspenseful. It was final. I started therapy, real therapy, not the fix your marriage kind, the find yourself again kind. And slowly, I began to gather the pieces. Laura and I didn't talk for weeks. After that initial chaos, the shared shock, the gut punch betrayal, we just retreated. We needed air. She was dealing with her own pain, and I couldn't carry anyone else's grief anymore, not even hers. But then, one night, out of nowhere, she texted me. Just 2 words. "How's Lily?" My heart softened instantly. Because of course she cared. Of course she remembered that my daughter, her former boss's daughter, was the quiet little witness to everything. I replied, "She's okay, still asks about you sometimes." And just like that, the door cracked open. We met for coffee a few days later. Neutral territory, no expectations. It was awkward at first. We danced around the topic like it was radioactive, talked about work, the weather, the price of daycare. But eventually, the silence caught up to us. And she asked the question I'd been dreading, "Do you think he was ever really in love with either of us?" I didn't know how to answer. I stared at my cup, stirred the coffee I wasn't drinking. "I think he wanted to be," I finally said, "but wanting and being are not the same." She nodded. We sat there, 2 women tied together by the same ghost, by the same lie, by the same man who told us both that we were his only truth. I didn't expect us to become friends. And we didn't, not in the way people think of friendship. We weren't texting every day or sharing memes or planning brunch. But there was a quiet understanding between us now, a knowing. We had both survived the same storm and come out with different bruises, but the same lesson. Some betrayals are so deep they don't just break your heart, they make you question your reality. And sometimes the only person who can truly understand is the other woman who was standing in the exact same fire. My daughter grew. She smiled again. Kids are resilient, more than we are sometimes. She didn't understand what had happened, not in the adult sense, but she felt the shift. She asked once, "Why doesn't Daddy live here anymore?" I paused, took a breath, then said, "Because sometimes grown-ups make mistakes that change everything, but it doesn't mean they stop loving you." It was the best I could do. I didn't want her to carry my bitterness. Daniel and I co-parented. If you can call it that, he was polite, punctual, predictable. But the man I had once known, the man who danced in the kitchen with me, who cried when we heard our daughter's heartbeat for the first time, that man was gone. And maybe he'd never been real to begin with. That's the part no one prepares you for. When you realize the person you loved wasn't a person, he was a projection, a collage of your hopes, his lies, and a shared illusion. And once it shatters, you're left asking, who the hell was I loving all that time? I got stronger. Day by day, choice by choice. I stopped checking his social media. I stopped imagining scenarios where he came back begging, sobbing, healed. I stopped needing answers he was never going to give me. Instead, I started something new. I joined a mom group, took a pottery class badly, but still, started saying yes to myself. Yes to rest, yes to small joys, yes to not needing to be okay every second of the day. I even started dating again, carefully, slowly. And one night, after a second glass of wine, I told someone the whole story. He listened, didn't flinch, and said, "Well, that explains why you don't trust baby monitors." I laughed, a real deep laugh, and for the first time in months, I felt like maybe I could trust again. The truth is, what Daniel did was cruel. It was selfish, it was reckless, and cowardly and unforgivable. But it was also a turning point. Because from that betrayal, I rebuilt. Not in spite of it, but through it. I became a better mother, a clearer woman, a stronger soul. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Pain doesn't leave you as it finds you. It either destroys you or it refines you. And I chose refinement. Laura and I still see each other sometimes, at school events, at the store, occasionally for coffee. We smile, we talk, we carry our invisible scars like tattoos, and we nod to each other like survivors do. Not with bitterness, not with pity, but with the sacred recognition we made it out.